Hi everyone, this is Sowmiya from St. Joseph's College of Engineering of CSE department. So my topic is SLR parser. Before that, we are going to discuss about the short definitions about the LR parser. So what is meant by LR parser? LR parser is the most efficient method of bottom-up parsing and is used to parse a large class of context-free grammar. This method is called as also called as LRK parser. So here L stands for left to right derivation. So R stands for rightmost derivation in reverse. Rightmost derivation in reverse. So K is the set of input symbols. So in LR parser, we'll be having the three types. The first one is LALR parser, and the second one is SLR parser, and the last one is canonical parser. So in this session, we are going to discuss about the SLR parser. So what is meant by SLR parser? So this is the weakest among all the three parsers, but it is easy to implement. This method is the simplest of all the parsers. And it is very easy to implement. Now we are going to see about the example for one SLR parser. Now first example எழுதி போட்டுறேன் மேம், ஏன்னா இது போர்டு பத்தாது, அதனால நான் ஸ்டார்டிங்ல எக்ஸாம்பிள் எழுதி போட்டுறேன் சேர்த்து. So we are going to see one example for SLR parser. So here starts with E is the production of E plus T, and also E is the production of T, and again T is the production of T star F, and also T is the production of F. Here F is the production of open parenthesis non-terminal E and close parenthesis, and also F is the production of ID. So before that, let's start with the solution. First of all, we have to add the augmented grammar for these productions. So first step, we are going to add the augmented grammar. We add the augmented grammar. Now we are going to add the augmented grammar for the starting symbol of non-terminal E. So what will be the augmented grammar means E dash tends to E. This is the augmented grammar for this productions. So here the first step, it starts with I naught. So included with this augmented grammar, we have written to continue with this production. So it will be starts like E dash tends to dot E, and also followed by these productions E tends to E plus T. Before that, we have to keep the dot of the non-terminal E. Then again T tends to dot T star F, and also T tends to dot terminal F. Next F tends to dot open parenthesis E and the close parenthesis, and the last F tends to dot ID. So here we are giving the name as I naught. So for the next step, to the continuation, we have to start with these terminals. So in here we are putting dot E. So dot E is the non-terminal. So followed by the non-terminal, will be having the productions in the questions. E tends to dot E plus T. So again we are also having the dot E. So we have already written the E productions. Then followed by this, we have to start with the T. So T also having the non-terminal after the dot of T. So T followed by dot F. Here we will be having the non-terminal after the dot. So followed by F production. F tends to dot E. So again, last but not least, there will be one more production as F. So here also we have to write F tends to dot E. So we have to write the continuation of this step as go to. So what will be our first production? So E dash tends to dot E. So here this will be, we have given the already name as I naught. So comma, what will be the production after dot? So here we will be having the non-terminal as E. So we have to write as E productions. So E dash. Here we have to shift one dot to the non-terminal of E. So E dot. And here we doesn't have any non-terminal and terminal after this E productions. So we have to complete the full entire E productions. And so next we have to write as E. So after that we will be having the dot. Again we are having the non-terminal as E. So E dot plus T. Here after that we will be having the plus. So here doesn't have any production for the plus. So we have to leave as it is. We have to go to the next productions here. So go to, we have already completed up to this E production. So next we have to start with the non-terminal T. So go to I naught. Here we have already given the name as I naught. So this will be followed by I1. Here we will be having new production because it doesn't have any similar production. So we are giving this new production for I1. So here we not yet completed this productions. So we have to continue with it. So I naught comma followed by T, because we have already completed this E productions. So I naught comma T. So for this productions, T tends to, so this dot will be shifted to the after the non-terminal of T. So T dot F. Here one more production will be having in T. So we have to write the 2. T tends to F dot. So here the dot reach at the end of this productions. We cannot continue by this. So we will be having next production. We have to give the new name as I2 because we don't have any simultaneous productions with these two products. We don't have any, don't need to change. So we have to give the new production of here. So the next one is I naught go to I naught comma F. So I naught comma F means, so F tends to open parenthesis. So this dot will be shifted to after the parenthesis. So after the parenthesis we will be having a non-terminal as E. So we have to write the production of E. So what will be the production of E? E tends to E plus T. So the productions will be starts from here. So we have to put the initial as dot. So again after the dot we will be having another production. So E tends to T. Here also the dot will be start from the beginning. After that we will be having the non-terminal as T. So here you have to start with the non-terminal T. So what is the production of T here? T tends to dot T star F. And again it starts with a non-terminal T. We will be having another production as T. So T tends to dot F. So if you see again we are having a non-terminal as F. So F we have already the productions. So F tends to dot. So the last one is F. So we will be not having the productions because after that there will be only a terminal. It won't be considered as a non-terminal. We don't have any more productions from this question. So we will be getting the terminal from here. This is the new productions comparing to all. So we are giving the name as I3. So we don't have any similar productions from before that. So we are giving the name as I3 here. So we have to move on to the next. I will be writing here. So go to. So we have already written I naught comma F. So we have to go to the next one, that is parenthesis. That means, so here we have to write I naught comma open parenthesis. So the next one is F tends to dot open parenthesis dot E. Next, that's it. So now we have to find out for go to I naught comma F. So what is the production for F here? T tends to dot F. So T tends to F dots. Here dot comes at the end of the non-terminal. So it cannot be passed to the next productions. So it stops here. We have to give the new name as I3 because we doesn't have any similar productions before that. So we have to go to the next. So here go to I naught. So the next production is dot open parenthesis. So we have to write the open parenthesis here. So F tends to open parenthesis dot E. So here after the dot there will be a non-terminal. We have the non-terminal production. So we have to write here. So E tends to dot E plus G, and next E tends to dot T. So ahead we are having a non-terminal after the dot. So we have to write the production. We will be having the productions in the questions. So we have to write T tends to dot F, and again we are having the non-terminal after the dot. So we will be having the productions in the questions. So we have to write here. So here F tends to dot open parenthesis E. So here after the dot there will be only the terminal. It is the open parenthesis. We don't have any productions in the question. So we'll be getting the terminal within this. So next we are moving to the next productions. So this is a new productions we are getting. So we have to give the name here as I4. So we are moving to the next productions. So here, so after this open parenthesis, you will be having the last productions. F tends to dot ID. So we have to write ID here. So F tends to ID. So ID dot. Here we don't have any productions. So it will be ends here. It will be considered as the new production as I5. So up to this, the complete production is over for I0. We have to carry on to the next productions. So this go to I0 comma E production. It will be give the new name as I1. Here the new name is the first production E dash tends to E dot. It will comes at the end of the terminal. So we have to no need to bother for this first production because it have already reached the destination. So in this process we have to move to the second production, that is E tends to E dot plus T. So what will be the next production is go to I0. So what will be the terminal or non-terminal after the dot is plus. So we have to write here as plus. So we have to write the production now. E tends to E plus dot T. So we will be having the dot after this T. So T is the non-terminal. We will be having the productions for the non-terminal T. So what is the production of non-terminal T tends to? So T tends to T star F, and again we are having the productions in the question. So T tends to dot F. So after this dot we will be having the F. The F is considered as a non-terminal. So we will be having the similar productions in the questions. So here F tends to dot open parenthesis E. We will be terminating this productions before, because we don't have any non-terminals within this. We will be having only the terminal, that is the open parenthesis. So we don't have any open parenthesis productions in the questions. So it will be getting terminating from these questions. So we are just moving to the next productions. We will be ending to this go to I0 comma E plus. It will be completed over here. So we have to move to the I2. So go to, sorry, this one is not I0, this is I1 plus, because we have already given the new name as I1. So this is considered I1 plus. So it will be getting the terminal to this production. We have to move to the next production, that is I2. So in this, the first one will be having to the dot. That is at before this it will be having the non-terminal T. So after that it will be having the one terminal. So we have to consider for this terminal. So here go to. So which one we have to write for the productions? That should be written here. That is I2. Because we have already completed for I0, I1. So the next steps wants to go to I2. So I2 here dot will be here. For after that it will be considered as a terminal. So I2 dot star. So I2 dot star. So we have to write here production for T. T tends to T star. After this F. So here we will be having the productions for the non-terminal F. So what will be the productions here? F tends to dot from parenthesis E, and again F tends to ID. So here we have to give the new name as I6 because we don't have any similar productions before. From this also it will be getting the terminal of this production. We are going to give the new name because we don't have any similar productions before that. Next we are going to start with the next step. It will be completing from here. So here if you see the next production, this is the non-terminal T tends to F dot. Here already the dot reached the end of the destination. So we should not conclude at this. We have to move to the next. That is here I2. Next we have to start with the I3. Here also we will be having the same destination. So we no need to bother about the I3. So after that we are going to move to the next production, that is I4. Here we will be having the new production. So we have to conclude it with this. So the next step is go to. Here it is I4, so we have to give the name as I4, comma. So after the dot, it will be a non-terminal, that is E. We will be having the productions for that E in the question. So we have to conclude at that. So here F tends to open parenthesis E. After the E, that will be the close parenthesis. So here it will be the close parenthesis. It will be considered as a terminal. For terminal, we don't have any productions here, so we have to start from, we have to make the destinations over here. So next we have to move to the new productions. So that is I4. So here we have to move to the next production, that is with the non-terminal E. So here I4 comma E, because here after the dot that will be arriving in the non-terminal, we will be having the non-terminal productions. So if you see, so we have to give the name as I8 because it will be considered as a new productions. So here E tends to E dot plus and T. Here after that it will be plus. So it is a terminal. We don't have any terminal for the productions. So we have to move to the next one. So we have to give the name as I9. So next go to. So we have finished for non-terminal E productions, and so next we have to move to the T, that is I4 comma T. So here E tends to T. It will get reached the end of the destination. So here if this process others, if this production will not appear before, means we don't have, we have to give the new name as I10. So next go to. We have finished these productions and we have to start with the production F. So go to I4 comma F. So T tends to F. I hope this we have reached this destinations before. T tends to F dot. Yeah, here we will be having I3. So we should not give any new name for I3 because we will be having already the productions of T tends to F dot. So we have already given the name as I3. For this process also we have to give the name as I3. We should not give any new name because this production is already appears over here. So next we have to move to the next productions, that is go to. I4 comma open parenthesis. So here F tends to open parenthesis E close parenthesis. So we'll be having the non-production for non-terminal E. So we have to give the name of E tends to E plus T, and again we will be having the productions for non-terminal E. So E tends to dot T. So this is also covered with the non-terminal T. We will be having the we will be having the productions over the questions. T tends to dot T star F. Again we will be having the productions for non-terminal T. T tends to that dot F. So this is also a non-terminal F. We will be having the productions. So dot open parenthesis E and F tends to the production of dot ID. So we have to check whether these productions will be appeared before this. So you have to check whether this have similar productions. We have to give the same name I4 for open parenthesis. So here we will be having the same productions. We will be having the same productions. Here I have erased this because the after the dot it will be having only the terminal. We don't have any terminal for this productions. So here the same productions will be appeared in the I4. So you have to give the name as I4. So we have to followed by this we have to move to the next level. So go to here I4 cover open parenthesis. It will be get the end of the terminal. So this is I4. We have to move to the I5. Stop putting. So we have to move to the I5. Here already it reaches the end of the destination. So we have to move to the I6. Here we still have the production. So we have to conclude it with this. So go to after the dot we will be having the terminal for T. So we have to written for T. So here we have to put the new production I6 comma T. So here E tends to E plus T dot. It will also comes at the end of the destination. So we have to move to the next process, that is go to so this is the I hope this is the new productions. So we have to give the new name. So last we will be having the I9. So it is considered as I10. So go to T. Next we will be having the production as after this T. Okay. cut பண்ணுங்க. So we have to move to the next step. See here I6 comma T will be having the productions for T. So here E tends to E plus dot T. So E tends to E plus T dot it moves. So after that we'll be having on another productions, that is T dot star F. Here after the dot it will be having the terminal. We should not take to the next level. You have to move to the next step. Here so go to I6. So the next non-terminal is I6 dot F. So T tends to F dot. We will be having the same production before. So we have to give the name as I3. So next we have to move to the next production, that is go to I6 comma open parenthesis. So here F tends to open parenthesis dot E close parenthesis. So we after the dot it will be non-terminal. We will be having the productions in the questions. E tends to dot E plus T. Again E tends to dot T. So after the dot we will be having the non-terminal, that is T. We will be having the productions in the questions. So here T tends to T star F and T tends to dot F and F tends to F tends to open parenthesis, E close parenthesis, and last F tends to dot ID. So the last one cannot come because the after the dot it will be the terminal. We don't have any productions in the question, so we have to skip that. So we have to move to the next level. This productions is already appears in the I4 level, so we have to give the same name as I4. So next we have to move to the next production. So here I6 got completed, so we have to check for the I7. So go to I7. So after the dot it will be considered as a non-terminal F. We will be having the productions in the question. So I7 comma F. So here we have to write as T tends to T star F dot. Here the dot comes at the end of the destination. So we should not continue with this production. We have to move to the next level. So we have to check whether these productions will appears in the before productions. So if it already appears means you have to give the same production number I4 or I3 like that. So this will be the new production. So you have to change the number as I11. Before the last number here is I10. So we have to give the new name as I11. Next we have to move to the next level, that is go to I7 comma open parenthesis. It will get already appears. We will be having the same level as I4. So we have to recheck it. F tends to open parenthesis dot E close parenthesis. So here E tends to E plus T. We have to put the dot at the beginning. So next E tends to T. We have to put the dot. So same E tends to dot T star F. Again T tends to dot F. Again it appears as the non-terminal. So we have to finish this productions. F tends to dot open parenthesis close bracket. Here's the after dot it will be a terminal, that is open parenthesis. So it cannot continue this level. It will be starts from here. So we have to move to the next destination, that is F tends to dot ID. So we have to move to the next level. So this productions already appears here. We have already given the name as I4. So we have to give the same name here as I4. So next we have to move to the next production, that is go to. We have to take from this I7 comma. The next level of production is ID. So we have to write here as ID. So here F tends to ID dot. We have to check whether this productions appears before the terminal. If it appears means we have to give the same name. So there is no set of productions will appears here. So we have to give the name as I12. So we have to move to the next productions. See here the dot already appears at the end of the destination. So no need to care about this. We will be ending here. So we have to move to the next level, that is I8. Go to I8. Here after the dot there will be a close parenthesis. So we have to write here as close parenthesis. So F tends to E dot. It will ends up here. So we have to check to the next productions. Here go to I8 comma plus. So we'll be having the same. We'll be getting the same answer as production of four. We have to check whether this productions already appears here, or else we have to give the new name. So as you check, the productions already appears. So here E tends to E plus dot T. So you have to check whether this productions already appears. So here after the there will be a non-terminal. T tends to T star F. Again T tends to dot f tends to open parenthesis e, and again the last f tends to dot id. So next we have to check for go to. Here we have completed this production, then we have to move to the next level, that is I9. So after that it will be plus, so we have to write the plus here. So E tends to E plus dot T. Here also we will be getting the non-terminal as T, non-term. So we have to write here T tends to dot T star F. Again T tends to F. So F tends to E. The production is ends here. So we have to check to the next level, that is E tends to T dot. It almost reached the end level of the destination. Here we have to check I level. Here also it reached the end of the destinations, and we have to check the I12. Here also we have reached the end of the destinations. So moving to the next level, we have the same type of production. So we no need to carry about this. So we don't have any new productions in this particular level. Okay, here is. So okay, so the next level is we have to find the follow for this production, that is we have to find the follow for this non-terminals. So we'll be having the non-terminal of E, T and F. So we have to find the follow of E first. So for follow of E is plus close parenthesis and the dollar. So the next follow is follow of T. So here we'll be having stitch plus close parenthesis dollar. Then the last one is follow of F. Here also we'll be having the same answer as stitch plus close parenthesis dollar. So I have written some productions over here which will be getting end of the destinations. That alone we have to write here, and we have to give the name as. So here the first production is we have already had the augmented grammar. So the second level of production will be having in the questions. So we have to give the name for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have to check E tends to T dot. So it will be already having in the question. So we have to give the name as 2. And then for I3, T tends to F dot. So we have the name as 4. So we have to give here as 4. So the I5 is F tends to ID. So here already we have given the name as 6. So we have to give the name as 6 here. So the next one is E tends to E plus T. So here we have given the name as 1. So I have written here as 1. So for I10, T tends to T star F dot. So here we have given the name as 3. So we have to give the name as 3. So the last one is I11, that is F tends to open parenthesis E, the close parenthesis. So we have already given the name as 5. So we have to write 5 here. So for these productions, we have to write the follow of ETF. So we have already find out the follow of ETF. So we have to write the answer alone. So to here this is a follow of E. So what we have find out for follow of E is plus close parenthesis and the dollar. So we have to write here as plus close parenthesis dollar. So the next one is the follow of T. So we have already find out here. So 4 comma asterisk plus close parenthesis follow. So the next one is follow of F. So we have get the same answer as follow of T. So we have to written here. So asterisk plus close parenthesis dollar. So the next one is follow of E. So followed by this we have already found out. So plus close parenthesis dollar. So the next one is follow of T. So follow of T in the sense asterisk plus close parenthesis dollar. So the last one is F. Here we have already given the name as 5. So we have to write the follow over here. So 5 comma asterisk plus close parenthesis dollar. So we have written the name here as 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5. So here we have to give the production number. So 2 plus 2 close parenthesis and the $2 we have to given the name for 2, which is in the reduced function of R2. So for second production T for production by the non-terminal F, so we have to give the number as I3. So I3 asterisk plus close parenthesis dollar, we have to give the production of R4, which is the reduction 4. So as followed by this, we have to give the separate name of the every production. Here we have to give the name as R6. We have already written here. So the next one is R1, followed by here we have already given the name as 3. So it is considered as the reduction production of R3, and the followed by this, the last one, we have to give the name as 5. So it is the reduction 5. So for this process, we will be having the 4 steps in the SLR parser. So the first one, we have to find out the context-free grammar. So the second set of the production is the construction of the canonical set of items. So we have already found out the canonical set of items. So the third part is the construction of the SLR parsing table. So we are going to proceed the step of the SLR parsing table. So the last one, we have to find out accept the parsing strings with one example of ID plus ID dollar. We have to accept this with the parsing. This one is the last. So we have to proceed with the step of construction of the SLR parsing table. So you have to create one table for this. So the first one is action. So the second step is go to. So how many states we are find out that you have to list out here. So we have already find out 11 states. So you have to written one by one. So that is I0, I1, I2, I3, I4, I5, I6, I7, I8, I9, I10, I11. So we'll be having 11 states over here. So these are the states we have found out in the canonical set of items. So for the action table, you have to list out the terminal which are produced in the questions. So what are all the terminals we have in the questions means this is plus, asterisk, open parenthesis, close parenthesis and the ID. These are the terminals we have to written in the action table. So the first one is plus and the next one is asterisk and again open parenthesis and close parenthesis, then ID, then the last one we have to starts with the dollar symbol. So I have listed here. For the go to, we have to list out all the non-terminals, that is E, T and F. We will be having 3 non-terminals over here, that is E, T and F, that I have listed in the go to table. So we have to list these reduction functions in the SLR parsing table. So first we will be having the 2 comma plus close parenthesis and the dollar is reduction functions, that is R2. So we have to list it in the SLR parser table, that is 2 is the I2. So 2 comma plus is R2. So we have to write here R2. Then the 2 comma close parenthesis is R2. So we have to write the reduction function as R2. And the last one is 2 comma dollar is R2. So we have to write the reduction functions here the dollar as R2. So then we are moving to the next steps here. We have to write 3 comma asterisk is R4. So 3 comma asterisk is R4. So on the next 3 comma plus is R4. So we have to write here as R4. Next one is 3 comma close parenthesis is R4. So 3 comma close parenthesis is R4. And the last one is 3 comma dollar is R4 and 3 comma dollar is R4. Then we are going to move to the next step, that is 5. So the 5 comma asterisk is R6. We have already written the name here as reduction function of R6. So we have to fill into the SLR parcel table. So 5 comma star is R6. Next 5 comma plus is R6. 5 comma close parenthesis is R6. And the last one is 5 comma dollar is R6. So we have to fill in the SLR parsing table. That is I have already filled for asterisk. Then the next one is plus. Here also we will be writing as a reduction function of R6 and the near close parenthesis that is R6, and the last one is dollar. We have to written here as R6. And the next level is 9. So 9 comma plus 9 comma close parenthesis and the 9 comma dollar is R3. So we have to fill in the SLR parsing table, that is 9. The states 9. So 9 comma plus is R1. 9 comma close parenthesis is R1. And the last one is 9 comma dollar is R1. So next for I10, so 10 comma asterisk, 10 comma plus, 10 comma close parenthesis and the 10 comma dollar is R3. So we have to write the reduction function for this purpose. So here the I10, 10 comma asterisk is R3 as I have written over here. The next one is 10 comma plus is R3. And the 10 comma close parenthesis is R3 and the last one is 10 comma dollar is R3. So here we have already reached the end of the destination, that is the level 11th states. So here 11 comma asterisk, 11 comma plus and the 11 comma close parenthesis and the last one is 11 comma dollar is. So we have given the name here as 5. So the reduction 5, we have to enter this process for reduction 5. So for the 11th states I have written here as 11 comma plus is R5, 11 comma asterisk is R5 and the 11 comma close parenthesis is R5 and the last one is 11 comma dollar is R5. Okay, நம்ம ஒரு நிமிஷம் கட் பண்ணுங்க. காலெல்லாம் பிடிச்சி இழுக்குது, இல்ல முடியல, இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் இருக்கு. Action. Okay, we have already filled the SLR parsing table, so we have to move to the next level. Here the 1 comma dollar is accept. So next we have to accept the parse string, that is I have taken one example as ID plus ID dollar. So here we have to write another stack table, that is the last one, stack parsing action. Then the last one is the table. So here the stack, we have to start with the I0 state. So I will be starting here at 0. So here the parsing action is ID plus ID dollar. So 0 comma ID is 0 comma, you have to check for ID. ஒரே நிமிஷம் கட் பண்ண ஏதோ விட்டுருக்கேன் 0 ஐடிக்கு S5 ஏதோ போடாம விட்டுருக்கேன் ஆஃப் பண்ணிட்டியா ஓகே ஒரே நிமிஷம் கட் பண்ணு ப்ளீஸ் stack input we have to write here as action. So here the 0 ID is S5. This is a shift operation, so we have to write here as S5. So we have to shift the ID to the left stack. So 0 ID, here we have written as 5. So this number will be carried from here, that is 5. So next the remaining things we have to write here plus ID dollar. So here 5 comma plus. So what will be the answer in the 5 comma plus parsing table is? So 5 comma plus is, so the next one is R6. So the 5 comma plus is R6. So here it will be R6. So what will be the reduction function for R6? We have to taken it from the questions. So E tends to E plus T, E tends to T, T tends to T star F, T tends to F tends to open parenthesis E, and F tends to ID. So we have to given the name for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the sixth. So F tends to ID. See, we have to write here as 0. For ID, we have to write here as F. So plus ID dollar. So we have to check here as 0 comma F. So what is the answer for 0 comma F means? So 0 comma F is 3. So we have to write here as 3. So 3 comma plus. So the 3 comma plus is R4. Again we are getting the reduction function as R4. So what is the answer for R4 is T tends to F. That means T is the production for F. So we have to write here as, we have to reduce the function. We will be having as a F0 T. We have to carry out with this level. So 3 gets already get eliminated. So remaining thing we have to write here as plus ID dollar. So 0 comma T. So what is the answer for 0 comma T is here 2. So we have to write here as 2. So next 2 comma plus. So the 2 comma plus is R2. That is the reduction function. So E tends to T. So E tends to T in the sense we have to change here as E 0 comma E. So E plus ID dollar. So 0 comma E is 1. So 1 comma plus. So we have to write here as 1 comma plus. So the answer is, so 1 comma plus is S6. So this is the shift reduction. Also we have to shift 0 E. We have to write here as 1. So the plus will get shifted to the stack. So we have to write the number S. So 6 will be having the number. So we have to transfer here. So remaining things we have to write from here ID dollar. So 6 comma ID. So the 6 comma ID is S5. So again we are getting the shift operation. So we have to move to the next level. We have to shift the operation 0 E1 plus 6. We have to move the ID here, and the next one is the number 5. So the dollar gets remaining here. So next to 5 comma dollar, what will be the answer for 5 comma dollar? So we have to write from here. So here, so we have to change. So 5 comma dollar is R6. So 5 comma dollar is R6. What will be the answer for R6? F tends to ID. That will be already given the number. So we have to write here 0 E1 plus 6. This ID gets changed to F. So we have to check the answer for 6 comma F. We will be getting 3. So here the dollar gets remaining. So next we have to move to the next production, that is 3 comma dollar. We have already getting as R4. So we have to check T tends to F. So 0 E1 plus 6. F in the sense we have to change as T. So we are reducing the functions. So we have to check T. So E1 plus T, here dollar. Next we have to check, so E1 plus T. So here T comma dollar is, okay, F3 69. So it will be changing as 69. So here the 9 comma dollar will be getting us R1. So we are again getting as reduced function. So 0 R1 is in the sense E plus T. So this E plus T will get reduced as E. So here dollar will get remaining. So 0 comma E in the sense is 1. So 0 comma E, so 1 comma dollar. So 1 comma dollar in the sense we'll be getting accept. So this is the SLR passing table. Thank you.